I'm going to compare your swing to Grant Waite, who was a tour player during the 90s. He and teaching partner Joe Mayo are now instructors of several PGA Tour players. Grant was considered by many of having one of the best swings in golf. I'm going to begin at impact, which is the most important position. Everything the golf ball does, how far it goes, how high it goes, how much it spins and curves, is a direct response to the laws of physics and motion that exist at the moment of impact. The physics and geometry at impact is a response to the club's position at impact. The club's position is a direct response to the body's position at impact. And it's important to understand that impact occurs in only 4 microseconds, which is 1,000 times faster than a blink of an eye. And it is impossible for any human to consciously influence ball flight during this fraction of a second. Therefore, every position prior to impact must be shaped and sequenced in such a way to consistently arrive at a fundamentally sound impact position. The purpose of any swing is to hit the golf ball with a desired ball flight. This can only be done by hitting the ground in the same place, and that place is in front of the golf ball. To achieve this, Grant and all the pros have their hands in front of the golf ball when they make contact. By having their hands in front of the ball, they create a shaft lean. That allows them to hit down into the golf ball and hitting the ball before they hit the ground. This maximizes the transfer of the club speed to the ball so that it maximizes the amount of ball speed coming off the face of the club. The pros also have the majority of their weight on their left side at the moment of impact. As you can see, the red line coming off of Grant's left foot passes right through his belt buckle. Steve, we're going to look at the impact position. This is what we call position 7. To begin with, I do like the position of your arms. They're both extended. I like the fact that your hands are in front of your left leg, which is pretty much what Grant has. What that does is it puts a little bit of a shaft lean at impact so that you can hit down into the golf ball. In many ways, your position at impact looks very similar to Grant. I do want to look a little bit closer at certain positions. There are some things regarding your weight shift and the distribution of your weight between your feet. If I draw a line straight up from your left foot and do the same for Grant, you can see a bit of a difference here in that Grant's belt buckle is right on top of his left foot. So the center of he's got the majority of his weight on top of his left foot. And most of your weight is behind your left foot. So even though your shape looks similar, there is a difference in the location of your weight. And this is not just an idiosyncrasy, this is a fundamental. The average pro will have about 85 to 90% of their weight on their left side at the moment of impact. What this allows is the control of the low point of your golf swing. You want to make sure that the low point of your swing is in front of the golf ball, that you hit the ball first and then the ground. And hands forward, weight forward, both of those is important to achieve at impact. As we continue forward to the follow through, this is the 8th position where the right arm is parallel to the ground. As I take you to the 8th position, you start to bend that arm. You'll notice that Grant's arm is very straight here. Both arms are very straight. You have started to bend this arm a little bit, and that the left arm and left elbow are starting to separate a little bit. If I were to take this up until your upper arm, shoulder to elbow portion of the swing is parallel to the ground. Right now, this arm, but you've already bent your right arm. So Grant hits through the ball with extended arms for a longer period of time than you do. You tend to start separating those elbows. Also, when we look at this this left leg, it's going backwards, and so that's kind of throw your weight back, where Grant is more forward and allows him to hold his balance on his left side. You had a tendency to fall backwards in your follow through, and it's because you're not getting your center of mass on top of the left foot. At the end of this golf swing, Grant will have 95% of his weight on his front foot. So if I drew a line straight up from his left leg, it'll go right through his hip. Most of his body's in front of that red line. And if I take you to the top and draw a straight line up, most of your body's behind that foot. So your weight doesn't have anything to do but to fall backward. It has to fall away from the front foot and falls back into the front back foot. So one of the things that we need to do is to you need to train your body how to swing through the ball and up to a position at the finish that allows you to hold your balance on that left leg. When the subconscious mind senses that it has to try to balance itself and fight the tendency to fall back, it will influence your swing arc. So certainly one of the key things that you need to work on early on is shaping your positions prior to impact, the setup, the backswing, and the downswing. Something's going on in those areas that's making it difficult for you to arrive at a fundamentally sound finishing position. And not only a fundamentally sound impact position, but a fundamentally sound finishing position. But we can improve your impact position by working on improving your finishing position. Now let's look at some of those positions prior to impact. Here we are in the one position at the beginning of the swing. I want to point out a couple of subtle little differences, but are important differences. Things look pretty good here, but you can see how Grant has his hip and part of his left leg outside the box, and you are a little bit more inside that box with your hips. One of the things that I think will help is if you could narrow your stance slightly. It looks like your stance is a little bit wider than Grant's, and simply by narrowing the stance, it would change that. It would make it a little bit easier to get your weight and more on top of your foot instead of angling in toward the center. Also want to talk briefly about how the feet are angled. I mentioned that narrowing your stance a little bit might be very helpful, but I do think it's important to try to have your toes angled a little bit. You can see how Grant has his left foot turned out and flared, and it's more so than his right foot. Both are flared a little bit, more on the left. What that does is position the ankle and even the left knee in a little better position to help move your weight to the left side. The brain does not want to move the weight toward the side of the ankle or the side of the knee. It wants to move the weight into the front of the foot and into the front of the knee. It also even helps avoid injury to those joints if you have too much pressure moved into those joints. I'm now going to go back to the three position, and I'll start with Grant. Three positions when the left arm is parallel to the ground, right about there. Now, as Grant does this move, notice that he has a very stable axis. His head isn't moving. His knee is right on that blue line. It stays on that blue line. His hip is staying right there. He's simply rotating around that blue line. He's rotating around his axis, and it's a very stable axis. So his golf swing is locked down. it's not moving. Now he's swinging around his circle, but he's not moving his circle. As we take you to that position, you do a pretty good job of staying there. You do move a little bit to the right. Because of your wide stance, you're able to stay inside the foot. But you have moved a little bit away from the blue line. Your center of your body weight has moved more to the right, and therefore your golf circle has moved to the right. Therefore, the bottom of your circle and the low point of your circle is now moved behind the golf ball. Grant has kept his weight on his left side. He's kept his low point in front of that golf ball. Another important fundamental in a good golf swing is how we control and move our spine. And as we look at if I draw a line from the sternum to the belt buckle, then you will see that Grant is tilting his spine towards the target. He's tilting the top of his spine towards the target. And the only thing that's moving, the top of his spine is in the same place he started, but the bottom of his spine has swung to the right like a pendulum. What you have done, Steve, is you have kept the bottom of your spine in the same place, but you have pivoted your upper part of your spine to the right, and therefore it's tilting in the wrong direction. The bottom of your spine is swinging left while your club is swinging right. Grant is letting his spine pivot and swing to the right while his club is swinging to the right. That's an important fundamental in every good golf swing. And before I leave the three position, Steve, I want to talk a little bit about something that you do extremely well. You really do have a nice extension in your left arm. You also are hinging your wrist really well here. That is an extremely important fundamental that you have done a great job of establishing in your golf swing. And once we get these other pieces, you're going to get the full benefit out of that fundamental. I'm going to take a look at your swing from the target line view. Your posture looks pretty good. Your spine angle, your knee flex, the hands are under the shoulders. Everything looks pretty good right there. Looking at Grant's swing and moving it up to the top and then down. Looking at his hip turn as he hits through the ball right there. Notice how he has turned his hips into the shot. I can see both back pockets very well. So he's definitely using his lower body to hit the golf ball with. Also, it's important to notice that the first thing we see on the other side of his body is the shaft of the club. I do not see his left elbow before I see the shaft. And let's look at your swing as you take it up and then down. As you come through, though, the first thing we see is your left elbow right here. We don't see the shaft. And that your shaft is here and Grant's shaft is here. So a little bit different finish. In closing, it's important that we only work on a few things, not try to cover every little nuance of your swing. We want to build a good solid foundation setup. We then want to have the next piece to be a very solid backswing from 1 to 3. If we can get the 1 to 3 move down correctly, then taking it to the top of the swing and starting the downswing will be much easier to be correct. And then once you establish that, you will arrive at a much better impact position, and that'll be followed by a better follow-through position. I actually want to work on the follow-through position a little bit while we're working on the initial takeaway. Putting those two pieces together will help the subconscious mind put all of the pieces together. So I look forward to working with you again. You've got some really good foundational fundamentals. There are some important ones that we need to add to them,